things can shift very rapidly when we put our minds to it and when we feel the immediate emergency to our livelihoods.
Hey, what's up, folks? We have a great show and a special guest to do it with me today. The first story is Klaus Schwab's apparent daughter, Nicole Schwab, has had a video resurface from a few years ago go viral on Twitter, her talking about the acceleration of her agenda, the Great Reset, and more. We're going to listen to it and react, and how it ties into their green agenda. Then we're going to talk about non-US citizens are allowed to now be police officers in Illinois, thanks to the bill that Governor J.B. Pritzker has signed. The media is attempting to fact check this slightly because of what people are saying. What's the truth? We're going to get down to it. And if we have time at the end, we're going to talk about the backlash from the left and the right from Candace Owens' Andrew Tate interview. Hope you stay tuned for the last story. God bless you guys. Dream Rare Podcast starts now. It's the Dream Rare Podcast. Welcome to the show. The way to get the news at the desk or on the road. Let's go. God is great and success in our control. The world is crazy, but we get better from obstacles. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to today's episode of Dream Rare Podcast. I have a special guest today with Julius here to join me to talk about the stories.
Yo, how's it going, man? Appreciate you having me on.
Of course. And to give Julius credit, not only is he here to tell me about the stories, but he actually picked probably all the stories. I asked him if he had any good scoops, and he did. The first one is Nicole Schwab, the apparent daughter of Klaus Schwab from the World Economic Forum. A video went viral on Twitter from a few years ago of her talking in terms of green agenda, Great Reset, and talking about how their environmental policy needs to accelerate, etc. I'm going to play the 4 clips and they're chopped up, but let's take a listen before we react.
This crisis has shown us that, first of all, things can shift very rapidly when we put our minds to it and when we feel the immediate emergency to our lives.
All right, I'm going to play just a couple more.
And second, that clearly the system, I mean, you mentioned it earlier, that we had before is not sustainable.
She says it's not sustainable. Let's just get a few more clips.
So I see it as a tremendous opportunity to really to have this great reset and to use this huge flows, of money, to use the increased levers that policymakers have today in a way that was not possible before.
Just one more clip before I react to that.
To create a change that is not incremental, but that we can look back and we can say, this is the moment where we really started to position, nature at the core of the economy.
So just to give them credit, that was from Intent. They have a very small YouTube channel. I guess she spoke with them a couple years ago. And the title of that video was The Urgency of the Global Green Transition. And I don't know if you caught that in the third one. I think I'm going to play that one again real quick. She talks about how she wants to accelerate that agenda because it and compares it to the COVID-19 thing.
So I see it as a tremendous opportunity to really to have this great reset and to use this huge flows, of money, to use the increased levers that policymakers have today in a way that was not possible before.
I see this as a great opportunity to use money to basically push policy. Like, they're openly admitting it, but then when you push back, they say it's a conspiracy theory. What do you think?
Yeah. That's the one thing I actually pay attention to a lot, was that part where she said the Great Reset, using money. And I was like, I forgot if I said something on that one, but I was basically saying that translation, they're going to tax you into oblivion under the guise of climate crisis, which is what they do. And so it's interesting to me that this woman, first of all, where does she even come from? That's my question. Where does she come from? I never heard of her until today. Like, I was today years old when I found out that Klaus Schwab had a daughter. All the talk we've been having about Klaus Schwab, now he has a daughter. I think she was grown in the lab. I know, conspiracy. I'm just saying, where she comes from.
I'll read her bio on the World Economic Forum here, Nicole Schwab. This video is from a couple years ago, so I guess she just kind of stays out of the spotlight while simultaneously being in the spotlight, if you care about that stuff. But I mean, that video itself was on a YouTube channel with 60 subscribers. So she's not going to the most hot spots. I'll just read what World Economic Forum it says about her. Nicole Schwab, the director of 1T.org and Nature-Based Solutions member executive committee of the World Economic Forum. She has a master's in public policy, Harvard Kennedy School, MA in natural sciences, Cambridge University, formerly worked in the healthcare sector or the health sector reform projects in Latin America, World Bank, and the Ministry of Health in Bolivia. She's the 2004-2006 founding director of the Forum of Young Global Leaders, 2009 to 2018 co-founder and president of EDGE Certified Foundation, a global scheme certifying organizations for closing the gender gap in the workplace, of course. Facilitator and strategic advisor to nonprofit organizations active in reforestation, well-being, and women's empowerment. Author of The Heart of the Labyrinth, a spiritual parable offering a message of earth-centered wisdom. Wow, she's like a modern-day Bible writer.
I'm not surprised by her gender pay gap and all that. Women, I'm not surprised. It's hilarious to me. You know, what's interesting though is that so this is the theory I have, and I think that with her saying that we're going to use money to under the guise of climate crisis, my thing is that I don't know if there's going to be like some kind of lockdown next year. I don't foresee that, but I do foresee them starting to push it. I'm starting to notice now that they are talking about the weather a lot, like this heat wave of 90-degree weather in places like Texas, Florida, California, typical summer, right? But they're mentioning the weather a lot. They're mentioning climate a lot. They're mentioning COVID cases now. They're bringing that back, saying New York and Texas and Florida is now on the rise. So
Right.
I could see them kind of like doing this kind of slow programming where we got to get you back to where you guys used to be in 2020 so that when something happens, we can get you guys to comply again. Because we experimented with you guys back in 2020, and now we know that you're going to do it again. That's how I see it.
This book, I always show it because I got kicked off of TikTok. This was one of the videos that got censored. I literally just held it up and I said, this is the book. They always say the Great Reset, and he's a very socialist, communist-minded guy. Like I've read his, so is, it sounds like she is too. So this is one of the only graphics they have in the whole book. I want to hold it up so people could see. I know it's a little blurry, but the center right there, it says climate action failure. Climate action failure. And it's a text-based book. I don't think there's any other graphics, but it says figure 1. It's called the macro reset. I'll just read some of the things. And the biggest thing in the middle is climate action failure, as if it's the pinnacle of their Great Reset agenda. They also have cyber attacks, social instability, national governance failure, global governance failure, biodiversity loss, food crisis, water crisis, involuntary migration. They have all these at the center of it. They're saying climate causes all of these things. Involuntary migration, that's caused by the climate. Social instability, that's caused by the climate. Unemployment, they tie it all back to the climate. As I went on a transportation thing the other day, and it said, hey, it didn't say the Democrats, but basically I knew the Democrats, because of climate, they're trying to shut this down, something that's been there for like 100 years. Like, hey, like, can you help save this way of transporting people, because like they're trying to say that it causes too much carbon or whatever. So they're using it to control energy. They're using it to control, obviously, I think governments like shutting down farms and trying to strong arm farmers all over the world. This is clearly the next way that they're going to reimagine our economies and our lifestyle. And all the people doing it, it's not a conspiracy theory. I've read the book. He's very socialist. He's very communist. I'm not these things. So him and his daughter, they have all these left-wing ideas, and they'll be like, oh, if you disagree with us, then you're a conspiracy theorist or you're an anti-environmentalist. But really, they found a crafty way to, switch their worldview onto countries and make it almost illegal for you to disagree or unethical.
Yeah. What's interesting too is that I noticed lately, amongst all of that, is you start to see these people who are protesting in the streets. Like they're these climate activists. They're sitting in the streets. They're blocking traffic. They're spray painting like pictures like at museums and whatnot. All of this is just to normalize it. It's to get people that who are for climate to see people drag them out and say, oh, these right-wing conspiracy, white nationalists, whatever you want to call them, take your pick. It's all to normalize it. This is why it's like small little steps. You guys see the protests, you guys see the activists, you guys see them pushing the heat wave stuff. You guys see them say that, hospitalizations are due to climate crisis. Like people getting COVID because of climate now. Like you said, everything ties to the climate. So they have to keep pushing that so that next year when something bigger happens, you'll fall for it a whole lot easier.
I always say the parallels between COVID and the climate, the parallels are this is the science, this is the data. You're not allowed to disagree with it, or else you need to be removed from social media or the media because you're dangerous. It was dangerous when you questioned lockdowns. It was dangerous if people questioned vaccines. It was dangerous if people questioned the data at all and the PCR testing. Like all of that was a health offense that pretty much got you banned and barred from society. And if you wouldn't get a vaccine, you got kicked out of multiple industries. And then now they're going to do the same thing with the climate, where if you push back against it, they're going to censor, and they already have for years, a lot of the content of it, as if like this is completely final. And then we have to do what we're doing. But the crazy part about it is, I don't even fully believe everything they're saying, obviously, but say what they were saying was true, was like this equation equal this, and we need to lower this number. Like they're getting rid of local transportation that is such a small scale. And if China just goes up 0.001%, that's going to be more of the carbon and pollution that they're claiming than that little thing you're doing. When countries like Ireland or Netherlands are like, we're going to cut down on this, bro, no offense, I love both those countries, but like you're not really a huge contributor to this global problem, as they say. So you stopping it isn't going to do anything. If China and India goes up 0.0005%, it's going to have more of an impact than probably your whole country will. So like the logic of how they're doing it is so obviously like tyrannical, and they say you can't question it, even though it doesn't add up, even with their own, logic.
It's one of the reasons why I believe Scott Wiener is so hell bent on trying to change transportation to make it more eco-friendly. When in reality, we know that, again, it's all just to keep raising taxes. They have to find ways to funnel money into their pockets and funnel money into laundry. I do think that a lot of these Democrats, and quite frankly, Republicans too, are laundering money. That's why you got people like Ted Cruz who support giving aid to Ukraine, giving money to them, because they want to just launder that money. Where it actually goes to, I don't know. I'm sure it's very what's the word I'm trying to look for? Not, I don't want to say satanic, but I'm sure it's something wicked. Do you know what I mean? Where our money is going to. So when you have these people pushing kind of, here in California, it's like that a lot. I was going to the Capitol all in 2022. A lot of the bills they were pushing was all climate stuff, everything electric. They wanted to take away the what do you call it? They wanted to do more eco-friendly bikes rather than have like the car garages. They wanted to change those. It's like half of them be like electric bikes and things like that. You start taking that, you know what I mean? You start taking those things away, and what does that become? It becomes more use for fossil fuels, all under the guise of climate, more taxes. It just gets worse and worse and worse. But the problem is that people don't educate themselves enough to know what people are actually doing. They just go, "Oh yeah, climate change." And if you disagree, you're a denier.
Right. One thing that happens for sure in politics, I know you mentioned like money laundering. People have for decades now basically done things that support their friends. Like everybody talked about Halliburton when it came to the wars and who was benefiting from that. When it comes to, I would say, other politicians, sometimes they hire their friends. They hire people lobbyists. I mean, that's basically that entire industry is pay to play, and you're bribing politicians to do your bidding. And then you have stuff overseas where it's a lot harder to trace the money, where I shared a Ron Paul quote on my my Facebook the other week, and it said basically, he said, financial aid to other countries is poor people in America giving money to rich people in poor countries. Or like it was like poor people from rich countries giving money to rich people from poor countries. So you give it to the government. And then in Ukraine, obviously, a lot of people are suspicious of, I think, Romney and Pelosi, and there's certain, Biden, obviously, that their whole connection. Everybody's just kind of curious. Are we doing this for the right reasons? Are we really doing this to end the war and fight the war? Or are there corporate interests, people like Raytheon and Boeing, Lockheed Martin? And then you have, I guess everybody is really suspicious of it. Remember during the lockdown that Gavin Newsom said no one could like go eat dinner with their people, but then he's eating dinner with like lobbyists, pharmacy lobbyists, I think.
Exactly. It's not to preach to the choir here, but it's the same thing when you got people, especially people like what's his name? Not Mitt Romney, but the other dude, John Kerry, I believe it is, okay, who's always preaching climate crisis, and you see him going to jet, like a private jet. It's the same thing that Bernie Sanders did when he was running for president, and he had a constituent ask him, they was like, what are you going to do about the climate crisis? Are you going to stop flying planes? He's like, well, I'm not going to walk to California. And it's like,
Right.
yeah, but yeah, you just talked
Right.
about climate change. So what's your, like, what's the execution? Why preach it, but then not practice it?
Right. They're going to not stop flying their jet, but they're going to force towns to stop transportation that they've done for hundreds of years, or like mom and pop shops to alter their business, or a farm to alter their business, but they don't want to change their lifestyle. I'll just say this: Nicole Schwab, Klaus Schwab's daughter, video going viral. Let me know what you guys think. And, do you foresee that they will use the climate change narrative and quote unquote crisis to further control us in a way that doesn't mathematically or scientifically actually help us?
Can I
Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna bring up one thing. It's a problem I also have when also like people like Donald Trump who's running for president. Um, he mentioned freedom cities, and I didn't like the sound of that because I forget how he explained it, but it really reminded me of, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, what Australia is trying to do with the freedom cities to, for climate things like that. So basically, it's like they control where you go versus you having the choice to go wherever you want. Trump trying to do the exact same thing. I can almost see him doing that, and then once he leaves, like let's say he gets elected, and then once he leaves, that would start to be more implemented. Once he's out of office, to
Right.
not take the blame for it. The same thing with the vaccines. Got the vaccines out, leaves office. Now we're blaming Biden rather than blaming Operation Warp Speed.
Well, yeah, with the Freedom City, when he said that, it's like they're trying to build these federal government cities. They sound like the quote unquote conspiracy theory 15-minute cities that people are talking about, that they're fact checking or whatever. But, when Trump came out, I said these are the freedom cities that'll be like run by the federal government. You're exactly right. Even with Space Force, right? When he created Space Force, I understand it's like another layer to our military or whatever. But now who's in charge of Space Force? It's Kamala Harris. If you build a freedom city and it's run by the federal government, first of all, you don't even really like the Fed, even though he's the head of the federal government, he's having problems within the federal government. So as soon as you're out of office, you're going to hand that over to a Democrat or someone else. So I think, Republicans, if they manage to get in the White House in 2024, they have to be wise. As you say, I talk about it all the time. They set us up. They kind of like don't do enough. And then it's like this, oh man, we didn't know what to do. We see what they're doing. We see the agendas. Let's, instead of playing into it and crying the victim, I think we need someone that's going to, play chess with the Democrats and set us up not for failure, but for success. I want to
Yes,
say
I agree.
the next story is Governor J.B. Pritzker, I believe his name is J.D. or J.B. Pritzker. Sorry, I'm not from Illinois, but it's one of those two. I think it's J.B. He passed or signed a bill that says that non-citizens can be police officers. I covered it. I did a journalistic article about it. A lot of people were getting fact-checked because I have to be accurate. They're saying, oh, illegals can vote, criminals can vote, or I'm sorry, illegals can be police officers, criminals can be police officers. And that's not what the law says. I mean, technically under these rules, it would be DACA recipients who are technically still legal in this like gray area, and people that have working US visas, but they don't have citizenship, or they're legally in America, but they don't have a citizenship. So I feel like this is the game. I just want to say this real quick, then I want to get your take. The Democrats do something crazy. I think it's crazy to let non-citizens be police officers, even if they're legally in the country. That's an unnecessary thing. This is what Democrats do. They do something crazy like that. Republicans exaggerate and lie about it and say too much. Then they get fact checked. It creates this little proxy war around an issue that's not even there. It's like, I don't know that they're going to be letting like bona fide illegal criminals be police officers, but they will be letting non-US citizens be police officers. That's the story. Why do Republicans always have to exaggerate it and kind of like skirt on the lines of lying to them, where the Democrats can point and be like, they're lying, and they actually have a semi-decent point? What has to happen is, Republicans need to get back in and reform immigration and change the laws. But for now, that's the story. What do you think about non-citizens being able to be police officers in Illinois?
Yeah, so one thing, I mean, that was my caption. I don't know if it's incorrect in my caption was, but I basically said non-U.S. citizens will be allowed to arrest U.S. citizens, and that's really what it is. One of the biggest problems I had, actually,
Right.
that's why that story interests me, because there is a guy, I don't want to say his name, but he was running for governor for the recall against Gavin Newsom. And when I did an interview with him, I asked him about illegal immigration. What the problem I have with Republicans is that they softball illegal immigration. So what they do is, when we say that when they come to this country and get free stuff, it comes from our taxes, right? So what they try to do is they'll give them these work permits, these green cards, whatever, to pay taxes, even though they're here illegally. And I had pushback against that. I was like, but they're still here illegally, but because they're paying taxes, it makes it okay for them to be here. That's not right. That's like a slippery slope. You're essentially opening the border without opening the border, essentially. So that's the problem. We already know that Democrats love open borders, but when Republicans don't do anything about it, and their way of solving it is by giving them work permits, I still have a problem with that. Yes, they may be paying taxes, but they're still here illegally, and that gives them more privilege. Now, somebody in my comment section on Instagram said that she had her green card for 20 years, and she has more of a background check than anybody else. I mean, you are in our country, so it makes sense. But at the same time, it's like, if we just allow people to come to this country and get permits to pay taxes but still be here legally, then that gives them more privilege versus more of a background check. And what does that say for the American people who actually want to get jobs? Like, now we're the ones who get background check, and they don't.
Yeah, I think the problem that I've been seeing, like especially during COVID, is if you came across the border illegally, you had less restrictions with COVID than a legal citizen trying to come on vacation. I mean, you couldn't even come without a vaccine. So it's like, I respect everybody trying to make it in America, but when you're treating illegal immigrants and border crossers better than citizens, when you're penalizing people that spent 10 years to get to this country and pay money, a lot of legal immigrants take it personally, because it's like, why did I spend all that time when you're softballing these people? So it's a complex issue. There are a lot of good people that can't get a U.S. citizenship because it's so hard. There are a lot of hard workers that are taking advantage of an easy system. I was talking to my friend today about Saudi Arabia. While I don't envy them in every way, like Dubai, I'm sorry, not Saudi Arabia. I'm talking about like Dubai, which is, I believe, UAE. There's like no crime. You could leave like a purse at like a airport and get it 3 hours later because they're so strict on crime. And that's really what you're seeing in El Salvador too, with I forget his name, Bukele or something. Nayib Bukele.
He's got the
president of El Salvador. It was one of the biggest crime capitals of the world, and he's turned it around where crime is drastically down. He had 300 total days with no crimes at all, or no murders at all. It was the murder capital of the world. How did he do it? He just went hard on the gangs, and he went hard on crime and made really strict penalties. And you see that in the Islamic world now. Yes, there's other things, and there's inequity, and I understand it's not like everything's not great about it, but it is nice to live in a city where people don't rob you, and it's very uncommon. Like, it's not impossible to do that in America, but when you go to these Democrat cities, they're doing everything backwards. Everything's backwards on crime, on who to allow to be police officers. They're too soft. They're too weak. They're too naive. They're too foolish. And when Republicans, like you were talking about, they get empowered, they don't really do that much. They're pretty much controlled opposition. Like, you're going to get maybe like a little bit better. But the truth is, like, we need something way stronger where it's got to be an ethical strength. Like, we're not coming to hurt you if you're a good person, but if you're not a good person, we want you to feel less comfortable in the city than good people. When good people feel uncomfortable in major cities, that's when you're a failed nation. When bad people feel uncomfortable in your cities and good people feel safe and like they could leave something, that's when it's a successful city. And America and the West are failing because the conservatives out here are like pathetic.
Yeah. I agree on that, actually, because see, and this is the biggest problem. I don't know how to explain it, but you look at what's happening right now in New York. I mean, they're showing videos of New York. They're showing videos of Philadelphia. I mean, even in my area, the homelessness is so bad. People are sleeping on the ground. They look dead like zombies, and nothing's getting done about it. And yet, the people who voted for this just shrug it off like, well, it ain't me. But it's like, but you voted for this. You wanted this guy in because of whatever virtue signal that they chose of the day, the LGBT, whatever the case may be. You chose this, and yet you do nothing about it. Republicans would fight back, but their thing is more, they speech a lot. It's always a speech, but there's never really action. I'm not saying none, because there are some in California who do fight back. I mean, we just had the biggest win in Los Angeles when DuPont wanted to open an all trimester abortion clinic in Los Angeles in Beverly Hills, and they got an email saying that they shut it down essentially. So people are fighting back, but it's like the major Republicans, the more well-named ones, do nothing. So it comes down to local, but even sometimes local can be questionable. Look at people like Brian Daly. Brian Daly was going for governor. He was all right, but there's some things he just wouldn't like stand his ground on. He was too soft. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, he's not going to win anyway, so it doesn't even matter. But I think part of the good and bad thing about America is there is levers of power. So sometimes it's hard for Republicans to actually do what they want to do. But in my opinion, there's also still no excuse, because when they do have power, it's like they have no problem signing executive orders for big pharma. They have no problem printing trillions of dollars for big pharma. They have no problem skirting around what I believe should even be legal to like do a socialist like a vaccine scheme. But when it comes to securing the border, like somehow they just can't figure it out, or they can only do a half-assed job. So I think Democrats are going crazy, but that slippery slope that we always talk about on my show is like the further Democrats go, the weaker Republicans often get, and there is a
Yeah,
pendulum swinging back for the first time. But I think that people need to get through the cult of personality, because what makes Gavin Newsom a good politician is he's able to scam. He's able to lie to people and make them think that he's someone he's not. And Republicans are the same way. They're masters at being like, I'm not Beto O'Rourke, I'm not Joe Biden, and then they put on like this little show, like you're at a rally, and people are like, woo 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 woo, but people aren't watching their executive orders. They're not asking these questions. If they could do it in that country, if this state's having success and this governor's pushing back more, like can't you do something a little more? I feel like
yeah,
the left right battle prevents people from challenging their own side efficiently, because two things happen. One, they always just say, well, it's the left, and then we're doing this. And then also I think it's like I hate to just blame him, because I think he's also done a lot of good stuff, but I think Trump creates this narrative around himself, and then people just repeat that narrative, where it's like they care more about like someone who disagrees with something he said about the election more than they care about the fact that he's giving trillions of dollars to like corporations and like selling out and being a socialist. It's like, because he comes up with a narrative. He's like, it's about me, it's about my election, it's about the polls, it's about the meatball. And then I feel like Republicans, instead of like challenging the Republican Party with things that make sense, they just kind of have fallen under the script of Trump. But it's
yeah.
a self-serving script for him to regain power, not so much one that like this is my and feel free to push back if you don't agree, because there's a lot of things I don't like about DeSantis, but I think he would be the closest to El Salvador's president, where I think he seems like someone that's strategic, where like, what power do I have to actually put law and order in the country? Like I truly believe that DeSantis would actually do a better job with what he could to make cities safer. And I feel like Trump's kind of like a liberal, where he's just like law and order, but he's always afraid to pull the trigger on his executive power, but he has no problem doing it for like vaccines and stuff. So I just see him kind of as like an actor at this point. But I don't know, maybe this time he really is mad and he really will clean up the cities or something.
Yeah, it's hard to believe in Trump, because see, the whole thing with the DeSantis and Trump thing is that I'm not really for either side, but it's funny how the right always talks about term limits, because they're too old. Trump is old too. So why would you not want some new blood like DeSantis, but then only want to start getting on him because Trump told you to get on him? Trump said DeSanctimonious. Now you're calling him DeSanctimonious. Trump uses fake COVID numbers to say he didn't take care of that he mishandled COVID, and now you're agreeing with that when Trump did the exact same thing. So with DeSantis, it's like, and it's always like these minor things that they always feeling him about. Oh, he told this little girl that she had too much sugar. And isn't that a good thing? We always talk about the food pyramid, things like that. But now it's wrong for DeSantis to say this little girl had too much sugar. So the DeSantis, to me, does seem like he is more strategic. Matter of fact, it was DeSantis who recognized that he was actually wrong about COVID, which is why you mentioned this anomaly that he brought on people like Joseph Latipold. He brought them on while Trump still kept Fauci on. So who's really the better option at this point? Trump, who keeps on Fauci and gives him a presidential commendation, or DeSantis, who recognized that he was wrong about the numbers and brought in the right people? Now, both are still not trustworthy, because obviously both do things that go against the country, like DeSantis going to Israel or Trump doing the anti-Semite bill, little things like that. But I don't understand why we don't accept DeSantis as new blood. I'm not a DeSantis sympathizer whatsoever, but I'd rather have a guy who's actually younger, more brighter than Trump, who still harps on 2016 rather than trying to focus on moving forward.
I hope if he wins that he's ready to like do the law and order thing. It's just I saw it and it didn't really happen. But I want to read a few comments, because this always happens. And at this point, I don't care. I'm desensitized to it. Like if people said, hey, I like Trump because he does this, this, and this better, and I trust him more, I'm totally fine with that. I have a lot of friends that like Trump more. But someone said DeSantis is Soros-backed warmonger DeSantis isn't backed by Soros. That's a total lie. So if you have to lie in order to make your point, then maybe you're brainwashed also. Trump took over $100 million loan from George Soros. Trump and Vivek have more Soros connections than DeSantis does. It's just Soros said that he thinks that DeSantis is going to win the election, like Gavin Newsom said he thinks Trump's going to win the election. I think Biden's going to beat someone. That doesn't mean I like him. That's just my opinion of who, or Gavin Newsom might come in. It's not an endorsement. So like that's the weird part. I want to read another one. F you and DeSantis, Trump, MAGA 2024. Oh, F your other brain dead stained DeSantis followers, you POS. So it's like people are like unhinged liberals when you have these conversations. I think both have elements of it. I just see like the way DeSantis wields power in Florida. It seems like he understands exactly what he can do, and he seems more productive than anyone else as a governor. Not saying he does I've disagreed with bills that he's done. I don't trust him. I think I don't trust Trump or DeSantis actually, but it's like, it's weird and we talk about this a lot. So I want to get to the third story, and I know people get bored of it sometimes. I feel like everybody knows not to trust DeSantis, but then instead of like just criticizing him accurately, they're willing to just say things they don't even believe to get mad at him. But with Trump, it's like if Trump hires 30 Bush people, it's just like whatever. But if DeSantis takes money from a Bush person, then that's bad. But if Trump takes money from a Bush person, that's whatever. It's like this crazy double standard sort of thing. I'm not saying he's trustworthy. I'm just saying he seems like he wields power and uses another thing is too that my friend Bobby brought to my attention. Trump came out after he saw The Sound of Freedom and said that he was going to go harder on human traffickers, like, and if he gets back into office, he's going to execute them or something. I think it was like execution for human traffickers. And everyone was like, it's a genius PR move. Cause it's like Trump watches this movie that's really popular, right? With the actor calling him Moses or whatever. Jim Caviezel calls Trump Moses. And then he says, I'm going to do this. And everyone's like, oh my God, look at, and like Jack Posobiec, everyone's tweeting it. But if you look 2 weeks ago before that, DeSantis said he was doing that in Florida. So it's like, I think he actually did it already. I think he signed a bill making it in Florida. So it's like he does it. It doesn't get that much attention. Trump does this genius Sound of Freedom PR thing, and everyone acts like he is like, oh man, if he gets, it's like he already did that, but no one cares. It's fascinating.
I will say though, during his presidency, I remember in 2020, this got really ignored by mainstream media. This was like late 2020. He actually did a lot against human trafficking. Like I would argue, his presidency did combat human trafficking, and the media totally ignored it. I remember talking about this. It was like October 2020 when he had this, not him himself, but his administration was at some place. I forget where it was at, but they was talking about how much they combat against human trafficking and things like that. And the media totally overlooked it. So he did do great things, but you make a good point. And that's the issue I have with Trump supporters is that DeSantis says something, and it's like, I don't want to hear it. But Trump says the exact same thing, and now everybody's cheering on like Trump did this for the first time ever. And this is the problem I have is that there's no critical thinking now when it comes to Trump. I remember distinctively, we always talked about critical thinking throughout his presidency because the mainstream media was saying this, do your own research, yada, yada, yada. All that goes out the window just because it's Trump. And that's why I got off the Trump train, because I didn't want to just be a follower just because of his name. I want Trump to earn my vote. DeSantis seems like he's actually trying to earn your vote. So what if he's not as charismatic as Trump? That doesn't matter. What is his policy versus his personality? I mean, sure, have personality, but I want to know your policies. And Trump sounds like he just harps on what he used to do. I don't think he's going to be able to do the same thing again. I just don't see it.
Here's an executive order from Trump. Executive order on combating human trafficking and online child exploitation in the United States. I don't have time to read it, but he passed that in January 31st, 2020, an executive order to combat it. I don't think it went as far as execution. That's why he's talking about he would do that if he gets back into office. But he did pass executive orders. He did talk about it more than anyone else. And I think that, it passed in January right before the lockdown. I think this is why like QAnon followers were so mad at me, because I was coming out and being like, yo, lockdowns are bad. And I think they thought maybe because of this executive order that the lockdown was like a secret strategy to arrest the pedos. So they were actually like getting pissed when I said like, yo, we should open America. They were like, shut up, dude. You're going to ruin this whole plot. And I'm like, do you have evidence? And they'd show me like the EO and stuff. We'll see what happens. But I know I always say this here. I just pray that I believe that people actually matter, and the flow of where culture and society go is based off what people care about. I don't think anyone should let any politician kind of like guide them in a direction or make them feel like, oh, that'll get done just because it will get done. Assume, in my opinion, assume Trump and DeSantis won't do it. You could be nice to him and respectful, but at the end of the day, remember it's politics and they're being pulled in a million different directions. This is the nicest thing I could say is like Trump's got lobbyists, Trump has donors, Trump has McConnell, Trump has all these people. He has Democrats, he has media. He's being pulled in a lot of directions. And I feel like the Republican party, they don't necessarily respect the base because and this is just my view, I feel like the base doesn't respect themselves. Like they're so subservient to him that they don't actually like, they'll make an excuse for anything. And I think Trump is like an alpha male and a businessman. So if like you're a man, like Trump's the type, he'll shake your hand hard and pull you in to let him know he's the king alpha. You know what I'm saying? Like he's a man's man. So if you're not a man who respects yourself and you're like his servant or whatever, he'll treat you like that because it's like, you're just happy to be near me. So I feel like journalists, especially, and people that consider themselves activists need to make sure that they respect themselves, where if he does something, treat it the same way as if DeSantis did something. And that's what you see in this like Trump DeSantis proxy war is people are so obsessed with Trump or DeSantis that they're just fighting like liberals, where it's like they're fighting over stuff that they don't actually even believe. Like, I'll give you a quick example before we move on. That school bill in Florida where it said that certain slaves had learned things that they ended up making business off. This is just my question to the people that were mad at that, because DeSantis did it, right? Or his administration did it. If Trump did that, would you say the same thing? I think some people would have, but I think a lot of the people wouldn't have. And that's where I come to like, I feel like I don't think I'm that special or unique, but I'm like, I'll say what I believe no matter who says it. But I feel like there's a lot of people that are just like professional campaign members now, like unofficial campaign members, where if DeSantis does it, they're like, that's crazy. But like if Trump did it, they'd be like, it's not that bad. And they'd be fighting left-wing media. You get what I'm saying?
If DeSantis did the platinum plan for black people, they would call DeSantis pandering to black people. Trump does it, and only a few people like, he's trying to help out the black community. But if DeSantis did the exact same thing, this is the reason why, again, I have a problem, because if Hillary Clinton did what Trump did in 2020, we would be talking about it right to this day. The same way we still talk about Barack Obama in certain aspects. Trump does it, and nobody says anything about it. And it's tiresome. And I get the same backlash on my YouTube page. When I spoke about Ice Cube and Tucker Carlson doing an interview, and Ice Cube mentioned that somebody that he knew got hurt by the you-know-what. And I mentioned, I was like, we got to go back to the root. Operation Warp Speed was the reason why people are having these injuries. And I'm very passionate when it comes to that. I don't speak about it 100%, but when I do speak about it, I get very passionate about it because people have been hurt. I know people who've been hurt by Operation Warp Speed, and nobody says anything about it. They don't push back on Trump about it. They just allow it. Now, normally, I know you have your stance on January 6th. People went there, they believe Trump, yada yada. My thing is that I know people who got locked up personally and still serving time right now. And Trump is not doing nothing to get them out. He mentioned like one time. What I find disturbing to me is that people are cheering on Trump while American citizens are still locked up for doing absolutely nothing. And Trump is doing nothing about it. He's not talking about it. He's not trying to get him out. He's not paying him a visit. He's not doing none of that stuff. And they're just like, he's going to save America. How about you save the citizens who are locked up for going to your rally that he told everybody to come to? It's just, I don't understand that. That's the one thing that disturbs me about the right. You want to cheer on Trump, but why not pressure him to get the guys out from January 6th who did nothing wrong?
I know Ye talked about it one time on Twitter, and then like Trump made a video like 2 days later. It was funny that like in this alternate universe, the artist formerly known as Kanye West is like some conservative activist making Trump talk about it. That was the craziest timeline. And I want to say this too about the mandates. And I know we talk about this, but I feel like it's so key. This is why we always lose. I said in 2019, before the lockdown on my Twitter, that they were going to mandate vaccines. I said it in March before they even announced the vaccine. I knew they were going to mandate a vaccine. They showed every sign of mandating a vaccine. California and New Jersey tried to mandate vaccines in 2019. I'm not a prophet. I just followed the news. That's why I talked about it. I could act like I'm a QAnon wizard, but really I just was going off of what they were doing in New Jersey. Long story short, we know that they're going to mandate it. Even if Trump won, corporations were going to try to mandate it. States were going to try to. There was going to be a battle for mandate at one way or another. So that's like classic Republican is they fund it, they pay for it, they give them money, it's socialism, they brag about it. And then the mandates come and then they sit and say, well, we didn't mandate it. I know you didn't mandate it. That's why I voted for Trump. One of 50 reasons. I voted for him over Biden because Biden sucks and Trump's better in almost every categorical way. So I voted for him. But it's still annoying when like, that's the best you could do is like Ted Cruz crying about like sodomy in Uganda, Ted Cruz, like it's just like such a corny party at this point. And with the January 6th thing, I hear you. It's like, I know a lot of people got caught up in that, and it's an ugly thing where like now Trump is getting charges as well. So I'm sure, he's trying to save himself just in the sense of like, I'm like not following it anymore because I just don't care about Democrats, but they're every like week they're charging with something new. I don't know what you think about that. And then also I want to say before I get to the next story, do you think that we matter? Like, do you think that if enough conservatives stood their ground on something and like pushed back that we'd get results? Or do you think it's like the power is so far above us that our opinion doesn't even matter?
That's a good question because I see people say all the time, they say, well, our votes don't matter. Our votes don't matter. Sometimes I got to push back on them. When I say sometimes, I say like I hear them, but I push back because people don't realize this. But in California, we have a force to be reckoned with. And what I mean by that is look at SB 866, the bill last year to have 12-year-olds that have been changed to 8 to 15-year-olds get the vaccine without parental consent. We shot that down because people showed up, because they talked to the Democrats and Republicans. They didn't care what side of the aisle you were on. They talked to them. They spoke to the lobbyists, and we shot that bill down. Look at, again, Los Angeles and DuPont. We shot that down. The power is in the people. It's just that there's not enough of us because, one, I don't know if it's because they're scared to come out because the left shows up. Screw that. Come out there, do the job. Like I used to go down there. I stopped going down there because for me it was just like but I'm starting to see now there are people who are pushing back against this. We can kill bills if enough of us just come together. But the problem is we're dunking on the left too much. We're so trying to be cool with getting points saying, look at the left, look at how I get that. But how much longer can you keep doing that? Let's stop dunking on the left and let's stop pushing back because matter of fact, anomaly, the left and the right is coming together against bills, even against bills that allow children to get their breast chopped off. They're pushing back against that. But you have the far left trying to stop the left from teaming up with the right and pushing back against these bills. And people don't realize that that's happening in California, but we're so concerned about Biden and Hunter smoking crack today and tomorrow. It's like, no, we have bills that need to be killed in this state because what happens in California spreads throughout the whole entire nation.
And I think in New Jersey, too, there's so much mandatory vaccine backlash in 2019 that they backed down. I agree. And, Loudoun County, I think the mom showing up and whatever for their kids. And I've been saying this, and I do want to get to the next story. I'll just end on this note. I do believe from everything I'm watching from Democrats, from my liberal friends, from like sports pages I follow, the winning issue for conservatives is them going too far with the sexualization of kids and like the over like feminization trans push in like sports where they're like trying to shove the WNBA down your throat. They're trying to like say that biologically born men should play in women's sports. Dude, all these liberal sports pages I follow, everyone's conservative on this issue because it's just like they don't care about the WNBA as much as they want them to. They just know it's just like logically not as good as the NBA as far as like talent level. Maybe they play better defense, but you get what I'm saying? I think this is such a massive winnable issue. And I always reference this, but I had like 3 to 4 Democrat friends message me, say, yo, What Is a Woman's a crazy documentary. I love it. It's fascinating because the far left seems insane and the far left controls the schools and they're going younger. Yep. If we could get out of our own way and just show people this, it's a massive winnable issue. And that's, before we move on, that's my issue is not, I understand that Trump wants to not go to jail and fight against the left, but it's one of these things that like, it almost feels like a cat with a laser pointer, like you said, where he's got the same 4 or 5 things he's been saying for 3 years. Like my vaccine's so great. The election was stolen. And it's like this thing. And I'm not saying I don't think the vaccine was great, but everything he's saying, I'm not saying he's wrong about everything. It's just like, it's this show where it only involves 4 topics. And to me, these seem like dead end topics where it's like, it's not going anywhere. Nobody's like, and then something comes up like a Bud Light boycott where it's like, okay, we're going to show corporate America that we're tired of what they're doing. And then you have like Caitlyn Jenner and Don Jr. that are like, yo, they donate to us, like chill out. And it's like, that's where I'm getting to is like, I do believe in the people. And although obviously I'm appreciative and grateful of leaders who paved the way, et cetera, at a certain point, it's like some people are, getting way too comfortable with their position. And it doesn't seem like they're interested in earning it as much as they are just kind of controlling where people go. And it to me, that the leadership seems too aimless for me to want to follow it, but I respect people's decision. My vote counts just as much as everyone else's.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing with the Target thing too. When Target pushed their little tuckware, and then they fought back, and then they're pushing their stuff to the back of the to the back of the bus, if you will. It's kind of analogy. I was going to tell you real quick. I know you always do your Trump impression. I was going to do the Trump impression where it's like, "My vaccine saved lives. I got the vaccine. You get the vaccine. The greatest vaccine ever. I did it in 9 months." I did 5 years.
Listen, Julius, you're never going to get in blacks for Trump with that attitude.
You're so wrong, Anomaly, because I got freedom for these. I'm all about freedom. I'm so about freedom that I allowed the country to be locked down because I knew QAnon would think that I'm fighting back against Bill Gates. When I actually wanted to hire Bill Gates. I almost did.
He said, Anomaly, you came to the Latino summit at the White House. Never again, Anomaly. We will give it to a hardworking Hispanic, not you, not a fake news wannabe Trump. You will be kicked out, and I got the best taco bowls. I'm like, all right, dude, I'm sorry. I ruined my spot at the golden table.
Did I tell you my story with Don Jr.?
No.
So maybe I told you this before, I'm not sure, but I was at a rally, this is in 2020, September 2020, and Don Jr. was in Reno. And so I went there, and I'm waiting in line to go see him, right? Because they had to get everybody in line first to go to the seating, whatever. I'm standing there. I'm talking to these people that I know from back home, back here, and I'm wearing my MAGA hat, mind you. I'm just chilling. This guy walks up to me. I kind of like side eye. I'm like, I got a bad feeling when he walk up to me, and he's holding this package in his hand, and he's walking closer and closer. Now look, and the shirt says "Blacks for Trump," and the hat says "Blacks." He goes, "Want to wear this?" I was like, "Nah, bro." I was like, "I got."
It was Don Jr.?
No, it was somebody from his camp that walked up to me, and I was like, "Bruh," I was like, "I'm wearing my MAGA hat. Do you not see this?" Like, it was weird,
like,
man.
It's just like, hey, put this on. He's like, oh, you like Trump, right? Put this Blacks for Trump. We'll put you right behind the camera. He's like, you look good.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, that to me, I would be more humiliated if that happened, to be standing there right behind Don Jr. Blacks for, like, oh my God, dude, I would not. I would be off social media after that. I'm like, I can't do it.
Different strokes for different folks. It's definitely like an eye-catching thing, but yeah, everybody wants certain groups, and like it is what it is. But it is at a certain point, it does, like, the right can be like as cringe as the left, like in certain ways. Like they do a lot of identity politics too.
Yeah, that was a soft bigotry of low expectations. Like, no.
You put the shirt on, you get to come and eat. He starts like naming off like stereotypical black foods, and you're just like, dude. He's like, you come to the White House. When I went to the White House, no joke, it was like Hispanic night, and they just had all Hispanic food, but it was fire though. I mean, it wasn't like stereotypical in a way. Like, obviously it was what people they wanted, but it was like
Taco Bell.
Empanadas. No, it was good stuff. Yeah. I didn't go on the day where it was like Chick-fil-A or Taco Bell. That was hilarious. He just shows up with like McDonald's. Dude, that's my favorite. I posted that. It's Trump sitting next to like thousands of fast food things. You know that picture? And I said, this is like the perfect symbol of America. It's just Trump with a bunch of fast food behind him. People got so mad, and I'm like, dude, that's hilarious. And it's true though. Like, if America could be one picture, it's Trump at the White House smiling with like thousands of fast food back on him.
all the food you shouldn't eat.
That was a funny day. I would have ate at McDonald's at the White House, of course. Like, why not?
I know. Yeah. Gotta live once.
For sure. I mean, it's not a normal. It is a normal hamburger, but like, to say you were there that day, it kind of makes it more iconic. Like that day will be remembered more than the day they had 5-star meals. Like, I was there the day that Trump just rolled up with like Chick-fil-A and Taco Bell. You're like, it's kind of gangster, kind of unnecessary. But anyway, third story I want to get into real quick. I didn't watch the interview. I've watched a lot of Andrew Tate, especially like before he got arrested. I'm not saying that's what made me stop watching him. It's just like, I used to listen to hours of his podcast. I find him very interesting and entertaining. But the last couple I haven't really seen. I know he did a multi-hour one with Candace Owens, and I want to know what you think about what you heard from it, and then also your reaction, because I know the left-wing media hates Andrew Tate because he's more conservative and he tells men to not be pathetic. And then the right-wing media also doesn't like him because he, has a degenerate past, and maybe he's not he says he's Christian sometimes. Now he says he's Islamic, but he hasn't really lived that life. So he's got a lot of backlash from the right saying that, like, you know, don't platform him, he's a human trafficker. And what do you think about the backlash that like both sides are giving about interviewing him?
Yeah, I found that interesting to me because I saw people like Billboard Chris, who I really like a lot. He fights back against child mutilation. I saw people like him, Natalie Denise, talk about him. And my thing is, and I looked them up, and Billboard Chris and Natalie Denise and other conservatives who push back on this, they supported Donald Trump. Now, I hate to come from a liberal point of view, but Donald Trump was accused of sexual assault, accused of sexual harassment, accused of rape. He once said on The View that his daughter has a nice figure. If she wasn't his daughter, he would date her. It's things like that, and yet they still stand with Trump. They still support Trump. They admire him. So you can be okay with that. And a guy who basically says he would date his daughter at that time, she was like a young age, not that young, but young enough to be like, that's kind of gross. And you're okay with standing with Trump, but then you get mad at Andrew Tate. What happened to innocent until proven guilty? And notice that all conservatives would say that to Donald Trump when it came to his cases, like with that Carol Jean woman, whatever the case was, allegation. Yeah, and so they would say innocent until proven guilty, right? But then with Andrew Tate, it's automatically, no, you can't platform him because he did this and that. In all the videos that they show, the jump cuts are always being taken out of context. And when he talked about what he used to do, there's like a 6-minute video on Twitter right now. You watch that video, he's not talking about forcing anybody. He's not talking about harming nobody. He's just simply saying how his setup was when he was doing his webcam, right? Now, in one aspect, he says that Candace says, when's the last time he was doing this business? He said 6-7 years ago. And then there's a video where he's talking about how he was doing videos during the pandemic, things like that. So they can say that's a lie, but I think that's missing context, in my opinion, because the way the jump cut goes, you're like, wait a minute, this is out of context. So right. the thing is that conservatives have this outrage, and I think the reason why is because Andrew Tate is one of the biggest names who's really telling it like it is. I think the only reason why they push back on him is because of his whole multiple wives thing and having multiple women and things like that. They don't want that in their space, but this is the same conservatives who would take Lady MAGA in their spaces. So who's really like degenerate here? Andrew Tate, or you bringing a man who identifies as a woman, puts on a cowboy hat and says, go Trump? There's no difference.
Yeah, I think so. You don't like the hypocrisy of it. You feel like some people are being hypocrites where they're okay with someone's degeneracy, but they're like quick to jump the gun. I'll say this: I haven't seen the interview, so I don't want to speak on it in full. But a lot of people, it seems like their backlash is that Candace didn't push back enough. To some people are saying that she didn't push back enough and she kind of softballed it and didn't challenge certain things he said. Like you were saying, maybe a part that didn't seem like it added up. I haven't seen it, so I've seen some people say that. I've seen, obviously, most people like the interview. They find it fascinating. Candace and Andrew are clearly very famous, very successful because they're both really interesting to listen to and have like witty takes. You know, I like Andrew's podcast. He's like, you know, he's not my pastor or anything, but he's highly entertaining as an entertainer. He was a world champion kickboxer. He's an interesting guy. I'll say this when it comes to like them calling him, oh, you shouldn't interview him because he's a human trafficker. To me, that's crazy. Like whether he was guilty or innocent, he should be interviewed. I believe he's innocent of the charges that they're charging him for. But even if he was guilty, I think it's like if you say he sucks and you should have done a harder interview, that makes more sense to me than, oh, how dare you even platform him? And it's like, dude, they gave interviews to Charles Manson and from jail and stuff. And I'm glad they did, because it's okay to like get someone's word, even if you're pushing back against what they're saying. I don't believe in censorship of like, oh, you know, Biden sucks, so he should never be interviewed or pushed back. Trump sucks, he should never be interviewed. Dude, that's cancel culture. That's the opposite of what conservatives are supposed to believe. So the ones that are saying that Tate shouldn't even speak and you shouldn't interview him, that's a crazy, crazy narrative to have. Another one is like you're saying, is they're saying he's guilty, and, you know, before they even look at it or let it figure in court. And I do think he was doing some like scummy, borderline scammy things with the webcams, but I don't think he was trafficking women. And I think that, you know, I think that they're trying to basically trump up the charges of what he did to make it seem way crazier. Like, I don't think he was forcing anyone like that. You know, I don't think it was like a trafficking thing where they're like going against their will and stuff. It's just, he was very braggadocious about being like a dickhead, basically, and a hustler, you know.
Exactly,
and it's like,
exactly.
And that's why they're trying to trump up the charges. But yeah,
do you remember when Brittany Griner got uh, came back to America and they swapped her out for the Russian missionary, that
Yeah.
one guy.
Yeah.
In that interview that he did, where he talked about how America is like has all this problems with LGBT things like that. He almost sounded like he loved America, and you saw a conservative be like, "Oh, this guy loves it. He gets it." But you were just crying that he's a mercenary, but you were happy when he spoke good about America. So should we platform him? It's okay for him to get platformed and say
Right.
good things about America. But you were talking about he's a mercenary, but with Andrew Tate, where again, guilty until proven evidence, guilty until proven, good Lord, innocent until proven guilty, no evidence, and yet you don't want him to be platformed. Why? But
Right.
you're okay with a Russian mercenary being platformed because he said good things about America. It's exactly how the right is. The right would say they hate one thing, but the moment that the thing that they hate says good things about America, oh, they'll champion him all day long. Like real
Right.
quick, somebody in the comments was saying something about Andrew Tate, and my thing is, they say Andrew Tate didn't apologize for scamming people. Well, Trump didn't apologize for hurting everybody for the Operation Warp Speed, but yet you still say Trump 2024. His Operation Warp Speed hurt a lot of people, and he hasn't apologized for that. He's still saying his vaccine saved lives. Tell that to the person who lost their family post vaccination.
Yeah, he says it saved 100 million lives, which is a claim so outlandish and fake that you won't even catch Bill Gates or Fauci saying that because they know that that's stupid and fake. You know, like have you seen Fauci say, "Hey, my vaccine saved 100 million lives"? Like, of course not. He's not like that's crazy, and I can't stand Fauci. But I think what you're pointing out is very valid. Two things: one, the worst take in the world is don't platform him. Even if that Russian mercenary said bad things about America, like vicious things about America, he still deserves a platform because if that's what he thinks, then let the guy speak. And then you could disagree with it and not let him into America or whatever, fight the war. But you can't just like cut someone's tongue out. That's crazy. So like that's the worst take for sure, is like he shouldn't even be platformed. That's so stupid. And then you have people, I guess, like you said, that have just like crazy double standards. Me personally, I got to see the full, I to be honest, I haven't read like the newer charges, but I have heard him be very proud of like his kind of like webcam business and stuff and kind of like hype it up. And this is interesting in the manosphere. Like I like listening to it because I find it fascinating. I don't hate Andrew Tate the same way everyone does. I like his podcast, but I understand like there are people that are not like me. And, I have flaws too, so I don't want to be overly judgmental, but a lot of these manosphere guys, not all of them, there's two branches now. There's like the traditionalism that's like get a wife, have 10 kids, and go live on a homestead. That's like one element of it. Like go get a family and raise a huge family. And then there's these other guys that are like, I'm in Croatia and I just nutted in an 18-year-old girl and I'm leaving her. And it's like, I find that really disgusting where it's like, dude, that's like, that's not cool. And it's like kind of like a cry for help where if you say, I want like a beautiful 21-year-old Croatian girl and I like really care about her, I mean, then it's like versus like, oh, I'm just leaving her to the curb. But the fascinating psychology of that too is like I posted a video, obviously older women that are smart and in their 30s and have gone through the dumb phase. They're like, oh yeah, no, that's not the way to live. But the truth is like a lot of young hot women, they don't like nice guys, so like there is something to be said about the Tates and these manosphere guys. Like they're showing a social psychology that is very real where it's like, of course, there are women who do like nice guys, but usually they've already made those mistakes. And like chicks that are in their 20s, they just want to have fun and stuff. So these guys are capitalizing on that. Like, come on my yacht. I'm a bad boy, and it is like a fascinating thing that's going on.
I will say, because I actually have a podcast I do every Sunday. I actually get you on the show one day if you're ever down. It's called the Age of Men podcast. It's myself and my homie C3 Nick. We've been doing this since December of last year, and we speak about these things. Like we started out kind of being a little overhyped, and then we kind of cooled it down with more nuanced conversations because we now starting to see. I've been called a misogynist for my take because I'm on the path. It's crazy. Like, you'd be surprised. In these Discord chats I've been called a misogynist. I hate women. Because I have these base takes where I say that, like, for example, with single moms and single dads, right? I always say that they should wait until the child turns 18 to go find love. Oh, what you hate women? And I'm like, no, I'm just saying it's selfish to have a relationship while you're trying to raise your child. And I hear men say, well, I should be able to date who I want to date as long as I take care of my kid. I'm like, but that's ridiculous to me. So you're gonna bring degeneracy around your child as long as you're taking care of him. That's like saying this guy's a rapist, he has a daughter, but hey, he takes care of her, but he still rapes women. And it's like, it's just so crazy. I was not defending the red pill, but I was defending more the concept. But I'm now on the path of like people should wait until marriage. That's what I'm at. I wouldn't call myself red pill or a manosphere. I just call myself the truth, like God pill, if you will, the truth pill. When it comes to conversations like that, which is the reason why I think people don't like Andrew Tate, because he's in that manosphere of having nice cars, having lots of ladies. I mean, he was even telling Candace Owens that he should be able to enjoy essentially the fruits of his labor, and I get it, but at the same time, how much longer can you do that? And I think that's the problem with this country. America is the #1 country for single parenthood. We're the highest rate of child who live with single parents. 80% of those single parent homes are that of women, and 20% are that of men. And especially in the Black community, it's really bad. I don't want to play on race, but that's just what it is. So for me and my stance when it comes to those conversations, I think that we need to stop having sex out of wedlock. We need to stop trying to hook up with all these girls. We need to start waiting until we get married. There's a post today that some chick posted on TikTok where she said that a guy was swiping on Tinder looking for other chicks after he took her virginity. And I'm like, but that's your fault. I mean, women are the ones with access to sex, and men are the ones with access to relationships. That's a talking point from the red pill, but it's a fact. No man can enter into a woman unless she opens the door, if you catch that metaphor. So the problem with this whole entire thing with the Andrew Tates of the world is that we're looking to be this kind of like, there's so many men living vicariously through Andrew Tate because he's rich, because he has nice cars, because of all this stuff. I get it. He has good takes on mental health. He has good takes on pornography. He has good takes on politics. He has a lot of good takes, but when it comes to sleeping around with multiple women, if you only have multiple wives, do your thing. I know Islam practices that. That's your thing. Do it. But to tell men that, not him, but the red pill to tell men that you sleep around with multiple women just so you can figure out female nature, you don't gotta do all that. What you're doing is you're actually furthering single parenthood, STDs, and things like that.
Do you think that people have the right to not like it though? Because like I like listening to him, but it's not advice that I want to follow. And it's like not how I'm living my life. And I find like, for instance, like I actually like Andrew Tate. I'm not a hater by any means,
me too,
but
me too.
he'll be like, I've seen him in interviews, like before he got arrested, they'd be like, "Are you Christian?" And he'd be like, "I'm Christian in Christian countries. I'm Muslim in Muslim countries." So it's like, that doesn't sound like a real Christian or a Muslim. I'm not one to say you're a real one, but like a real Christian is not going to say I'm Muslim when I need to be, or a real Muslim's not going to say I'm Christian when I need to be. So it's like, he kind of plays this role where I think that, he's mentioned it too. He put together a strategy to get really famous. Like he's a genius, and he knew how to market it. And that marketing included controversy. That marketing included attention. When he makes a video about something that's controversial, whether it's women driving, he knows it's going to get a lot of views. So it's like, on one hand, I think they're trumping up charges, and I support it. On another hand, it's like, as a man, I don't want to be judgmental of someone else's life until I live the life I want to live. So I'm more focused on myself than critiquing him. But it's one of those things where it's like, is all this stuff really as great as you say it is? And it's like one of those things where it's like, at what you want fame, you want money, like at what cost do you want it? I want money, but not at any cost. Like I wouldn't do certain things for it, but other people would. And he's one of these guys that's kind of like a Putin and a Trump type, where the appeal to him is he's like, the world is crazy, the world is cold, the world is corrupt. Yeah. I live in a corrupt country because the world is corrupt, so I go where my money goes. Like he's very authentic in his craziness and in his like, pride and some of the things he's did that aren't unethical. And he's like a window into the real world that a lot of people don't want to look at. And he's like, I'll be that guy. I'll be the hero. I'll be the villain. It's interesting. But do you think that people have a right to just be like, he's a bad influence?
No, people have a right. People have a right to their opinion, 100%. But I think when it comes to saying to not platform him, that's when they start to get into the more liberal feelings.
Right.
See, again, I do like Andrew Tate. He's had some weird takes. I don't know if you saw before, like a couple months ago, where he was talking about, would you choose a Hulk Hogan or a Hulk Hogan looked like Megan Fox? I was like, hold on, buddy. What are you talking about? Weird take. But aside from
that goes viral though. It's like, it's like, that's a viral video because it's so controversial. Like that's the genius of his marketing. Is like, he knows that's going to get 10 million views.
Right. So
people are going to talk about it.
I mean, yeah, it's a weird take, but see, that's the thing is that unfortunately, I don't want to downplay people's intelligence, but sometimes people like really take that stuff to gospel and they think it's true. So the answer to your question, should people have a right to not like him? Yeah, they can have a right to their opinion. That's fine. Andrew Tate is going to say things that people disagree with. That's how it's going to be. It's like Trump said things I disagree with, but the right tends to agree with everything. Andrew Tate says some things and they just hate him for everything. But why? Because he says this, he says that. So you cannot like him and you cannot pay attention to him. But unfortunately, anomaly, the problem is that a lot of the red pill stuff tends to not get tied back to him, but it puts him in that space because he was in that space. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, he didn't call himself red pill, and he's mentioned that before, but the things he says, a lot of red pill echoes. I'll give you an example. Do you know just Pearly thinks?
Yes.
Yeah, she had a take where she said 16-year-olds are hotter than 26-year-olds.
And she deleted it pretty quickly.
Right, and I actually called her out on that too. It's stuff like that. It's like the things that Andrew Tate says tends to open the doors for other people to echo the sentiment to the point where it gets weird. Like 16-year-olds are hotter than 26-year-olds. So I think that's why they tend to kind of that's what I'm looking for. They conflate him with that. Like, they put him in the same box where I don't think he's that guy to say that. But there's nothing wrong with his takes. He's going to have things that's controversial. He knows what's controversial. Just like Kanye West knows what's controversial. He knows it. They all know it.
Do you feel like say like Liver King, for example, he got famous basically saying he was all natural, and it was a lie. And now he's like fallen out of obscurity because he lied. With Just Pearly things, like some of the things she says about women and stuff, it's edgy, but it's true. But then she just goes further and further. And I'm at the point now where, like, do I hate her? No, but she just wants attention. You know, some people, like, as someone that I'm not like super famous, but I'm more famous than most, like, fame is not what you want. You want the money for your family. You want to live good. You want to be able to afford stuff and not go broke. Like, the money's nice. The, you know, the respect is nice, but like, just being, I want fame at all costs. I'll say anything for attention, for backlash. You're going to say stupid stuff that you don't even believe. And you're going to just like, I don't think fame is that desirable, to be honest. I think it's the respect, etc. So there are a lot of people popping up in the manosphere where it's like, I want to be famous at all costs. Andrew Tate, he's got great takes on COVID. He's got great takes on nations, on crime. He's very good. I mean, he could be a president or a politician because he's very smooth, very authentic. But then it's like, it's mixed in with like, you know, I would say just like more degenerate stuff that isn't really conservative. And that's his right to be that person. I'm not saying I'm a perfect person, but it's like, I'm not, I guess, as someone who has listened to Tate and like this stuff, I'm not into like the Just Pearly things. I think it's like some things she says or whatever, but like I just feel like she's a chick. Just say whatever for attention. Say whatever for attention. Then she says something kind of wild and then deletes it. And like, it's just like, it just seems very like childish to me. But at the same time, with those manosphere guys, I guess I understand where they're coming from. Like, I've been in my 20s, and even now, I'll give you an example real quick. There's this, I know a chick that's like beautiful, right? She could probably have 10,000 boyfriends if she wanted, or like 10,000 husbands to be. And like, she gets in a relationship and it's with somebody, she says it's abusive, whatever. She gets out of it. And it's like, she could be with a nice guy, but she probably doesn't want a nice guy. So these manosphere are going like full Joker mode, right? Where they're like, if the world's going to burn, let it burn. And they're like leaning into it of like, yo, I've been a nice guy and nice guys don't get it. I want the cars. I want the yachts. I want to do what I want. I want to be wild. And it's like an interesting thing that I don't hate on, but I'm not that. But I'm definitely not trying to censor it. And I understand why people would like it and wouldn't like it. I'm more just like studying it where I'm like, I see both sides, but you know, at this point in my life, that's not where I'm at, but I get it.
I mean, it's because, see, the thing about these topics is the reason why my friend Nick and I came up with the Age of Man podcast, and we have these nuanced conversations. What we've noticed, and what I've noticed too, is that, and Andrew Tate read about this too. He spoke about this on Just Pearly Things last year, I think it was, or earlier this year. It's status. Women will like you because of status. So a lot of these men are trying to chase the high end goal of yachts, money, entrepreneurship, and things like that. It's one thing to have it, but it's one thing to actually like really make a difference with it. I think that's the biggest difference. That's why you probably see this kind of failure in the red pill, because men want it, but without having to keep it consistent. You know what I mean? Like, once they got it and they blow it, then what? So the thing about the manosphere is that with men are being told to get on their purpose. At one point, it used to be about getting on your purpose. Now it's about sleeping with how many girls you can sleep with. So it's definitely changed for the worse, in my opinion. But my thing is this, my take when it comes to the whole manosphere thing, for men today, men like myself and you, we got to take care of ourselves, make our money, but recognize the fact that when we do get with somebody, unfortunately, whether she's conservative, liberal, it doesn't matter. women at the end of the day want a man of status. You ever notice that most women say men are supposed to do this, we're supposed to do that. But the moment we say, well, I want a girl who's submissive, now all hell breaks loose. What do you mean submissive? It's like, well, that's just what it is. If you're gonna marry me, biblically, it says the wife should obey her husband, and the husband should love his wife as he loved the Lord. But most women don't want to get down with that. It's like they preach God, but they don't want to be about the Bible when it comes to submission. So
Right.
there is a level of status when it comes to the manosphere, as far as when men get this much money, they become this known, and whatever the case may be. That's when women start to pay attention to them. These nice guys usually are the ones that women will settle less for, because you talked about earlier, Anomaly, when you said women in the 30s, all these experiences and things like that. A lot of the times, these experiences are sex with other men, and most men don't want to deal with a chick who's had hella bodies like that. That's why you see the common theme of body count matter. It doesn't matter, does it not? Because it does matter, because most men don't want to be with a chick who slept around with hella dudes, because the last guy she gets with will not get the same treatment as the guy before her. Do you get what I'm saying? And that's just the way it is. So I was like, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to say that the manosphere stuff like that's interesting, because to me, these are not my idols. Like, I'm not trying to be like them, but I do find the psychology of what they're doing and how people react fascinating. Like Andrew Tate says this, and then people react this way. Like, I honestly love it, just seeing, even if I don't agree, like how it works. I'll give you like a personal example for myself. Like I'm at the point in my life where I'm doing well for myself, but I don't think it's cool to just like bang a bunch of chicks. Like I've maybe thought that at a point in my life, but I'm not there. So now I think more logically and more Christian and more conservative. I'm not perfect, but it's like sex makes babies. So like if at this point in my life, I'm single, I'm clean, I'm healthy, I don't have any kids, I want a wife. I want to have kids the right way and a family the right way. So I don't want to have sex with these women, because if you're not my wife, I'm not interested in it. But me personally, like as much as they say like women control sex, and I've heard that, like you're saying, if I say no to a chick, which happens often, like I don't want to have sex like that, they do not handle it well. You know what I'm saying? And it makes me feel good. Like I must be a catch or whatever. Cause like, if they didn't care, they wouldn't care, but like, they don't handle it well at all, because I'm not going to say it's the Jezebel spirit, but it's one of those things where like most guys will, especially if they're a really hot girl, most guys will do it. So if you reject them, they almost take it personally, but I'm like, yo, understand that this process makes children. So like, I know it probably won't happen, but I don't even want to roll the dice anymore. I'm not interested in it. I don't like you I don't know you that much. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're not my wife, and they don't like it. They hate that stuff. It's like a lot of girls, they get their perceived like value through but it's temporary. And then it drives both people. The guy doesn't feel good about it after, the girl doesn't feel good about it after. It's like sex culture in America is just a mess. But I'm just like, I'm at the point now where I'm like, it's not, that life doesn't appeal to me. What they're all talking about, it's like, I don't find that fun. It's fun for a night, but then you think about it too much.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you too. And the reason why, I know this is kind of like an off subject, but I'm speaking on this because this matters in society today. Like the whole manosphere, all this stuff matters today. I'll be honest with you. I don't speak about this much normally, but I will tell you here first, people getting exclusive. I was somebody who was doing that, just having fun. I was that guy. I experienced what it's like to be a nice guy. I knew what it's like to be on my purpose. I saw both ways. That's why I came to the conclusion of what it really means to be a man. What it means to be a man is really taking care of yourself, taking care of your family, loving God, putting God first, God, family, country. Once you start to discipline yourself in that manner, you really start to know what you want. I'm 36 years old. I know what I want. I'm a single dad. To most women, I'm a leftover, because I've already had a kid. That's why with single mom, they're also leftovers too. So the problem is that when you mentioned earlier about the females who get, who felt some kind of way that you rejected them, because to them, they think that they're God essentially, because it's like, well, I'm hot, so why aren't you attracted to me? But if you would have fell for that and had sex with them, they would have lost interest just like that, because you gave it up easily, and so did she. You get what I'm saying?
For sure. And it's one of those things, like if I've reacted, even in my 20s, this happened, because like I wasn't just trying to bang everyone. So like I had pretty decent discernment for a 20-year-old, not perfect by any means, but like women have always got mad at me when I haven't wanted to have sex, where it's like, I'm not trying to just bang everybody. And if I like you a little bit, like I don't feel the need to do it the first time we meet. Cause like if it goes weird or you do it, it's like you're like, oh, I don't want a kid. Weird. I freak myself out before thinking something happened and it didn't. But those are some of the worst times I remember, like freaking out thinking I had a kid out of what, and it wasn't the chick. So like I don't want to recreate that at all. And women have never handled it where if I did that to a woman, they would say I'm raping them. They'd be like, oh, he couldn't take no for an answer. Dude, the amount of chicks that can't take no for an answer for me has been, more than zero for sure. And with just Pearly things, I wanted to say, like, I think she's like pushing the edge and it's backfiring, but I'm not saying she's a terrible person or anything, but like, if you really want to be this woman, need to do this woman, just go get married. You know what I'm saying? Go get
Yeah,
married, close your
that
YouTube
was
account,
true.
have kids. One of the biggest flex, regardless of what people think of his comedy or what he says, is Owen Benjamin. He's got like 4 kids. He lives on a homestead. He grows his own food. He's living that life. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
If you're not living that life, but you're this main 20-year-old girl expert who's like, I'm telling everybody women should shut up, women should do this. I'm not mad at you for like telling women to shut up. I think it's funny, but at the end of the day, like, live the life that you're talking about. If you can't live
Exactly.
it,
Yeah.
why are you an expert on it? I admit I'm not I'm not going to be like,
Because
I'm
she
the expert
hijacked
on
it.
marriage and children. It's like, I'm not. If I
Yeah.
have 7 kids, 8 kids and a happy wife and a farm, then yeah, now I'm the expert. But like,
Well, she
that's
hijacked it. She look. I agree. I appreciate Pearly things in some aspects, but she's 26 years old. She preaches all these things about women. She's about to be 4 years until 30, and according to her, women after that. Matter of fact, she just said that 16-year-olds are hotter than 26-year-olds. She's 26, so clearly she's not hot. Do you know what I'm saying? So she has all these takes, but she's, in my opinion, say what you want about whether you like her or not, I would say it kind of seemed like she's hijacking the red pill space because she's coming in hot, saying all these things, almost to the point of pedophilia where 16, I got a daughter who's 15. I don't know if you know how to have a child or not, but I got a daughter who's 15 years old. Imagine like a guy, her saying that, and then out in the world, some guy thinks she's hot. And then something happens. You get what I'm saying? Like that's
right.
I'm not saying like she's causing violence. I'm not saying that, but saying that alone gets ideas in people's heads.
She deleted it for a reason. She deleted that tweet for a reason.
Exactly.
Here's a question I want to ask real quick because I think it's interesting. I try to not be a hater, but at the same time, I'm not fake. So my question to you is like, where does being a hater cross the line of being righteous? For example, if you think someone's straight up like, oh, I just disagree with a few things, but they're all right, versus like you think, oh, they're there to hijack the movement. They're there to take like the Christian conservative vibe and make it not Christian and conservative. Like, where do you draw the line of someone that you're like, hey, I like listening to Tate. I don't agree with everything, but I think he's a net positive and I think he's innocent, versus like, I think that person's there to just straight up divert it and I want to speak against it. Where do you draw that line of like not being a hater versus not being a pushover?
Where I draw the line, to me, I can see it based on their actions. It's their actions that speak louder than the words. When Pearly Things first came out, I think she had very genuine takes because she came from a good home. I thought her coming from a good home with a great dad, great family would kind of put more sense. So she had a lot of great takes. Come to find out, she was plagiarizing this YouTube channel called It's Complicated. She plagiarizing Kevin Samuels, from what I understand. And now the fact that she's grown her platform so much, it almost seemed like that's changing her. Where I draw the line is when you start to push things, again, I'm keep harping on this, but when you start to push things like 16-year-olds are hotter than 26-year-olds, that to me is borderline. It's not even borderline. It's pedophilia all the way. I'm just going to be honest with you. Did
she for sure say that? Because I saw the tweet. People are saying she said 40 and 26. Like, I just
no,
was it like on her official Twitter for sure?
Yeah, because I saw that tweet and I posted on Instagram. I said, this is getting weird. And then she erased that tweet, and I kept it in my phone. And I said, "Hey, Pearly Things, why did you delete this tweet?" So it's getting weird. And then you got men who are defending it, who are saying things like, "Well, in some states they allow 6." No. What's your legality and whether morally is 2 different things. If legally in a state and you can marry somebody at 16, that's one thing, but they have certain laws on that. For example, there's a state, I forget which state it is, but there's a state where 12-year-olds can get married, but it's like this. If the 12-year-olds like each other and they want to get married, they have to live in separate homes until they get older, and then they can get married and then move in together like that. That's like the law because it's parental choice. You know what I mean? It comes down to parental choice. When you're talking about legality, is one thing, but saying out loud that a 16-year-old is hotter than a 26-year-old, and that 16-year-old is not an adult and they're still in high school, that is pedophilia, in my opinion, if you're saying that as a grown man. You can mention the legal states and marriage and things like that. That's nothing to do with the fact that you're saying, my daughter is 15 years old. Imagine a grown man saying my daughter is hot than the chick that's 26 years old, who's had a little bit more experience in life, not sexually, but just living life in general. So to me, I think the line gets drawn when you start to push edgy things like that just for the sake of pushing things. Because now on Twitter you can get paid for all your little tweets and things like that. And I think she's just pushing those type of tweets just to get the reaction, just to get the money.
Yeah, I mean, I think for sure she's like addicted to the attention. Where like I'm luckily I'm built the opposite. Like I don't like I'm not trying to get like written 15 articles about. It's not fun for me. I like respect. I like being able to build a business, but just like at all costs, attention at all costs. That's what it seems like. She just kept escalating. Where it's like a lot of her takes, like you said, it's like she's poking the bear, but it seems like she's trying to do that more. And I noticed, like, obviously that was a totally different take, but people are now having the debate on Twitter, like talking about how people used to get married younger back in the day and start families like way, way earlier. I saw that debate going on Twitter, and it's one of those things that's like a dead end because, it's just like, it's not
but that's what I'm talking about though. It's one thing again to mention like the legality of it. Again, I mentioned the bill with the 12-year-olds can get married, because in certain states where they allow that, I believe you still have to have a parent guardian. Like again, if a 13-year-old and a 13-year-old when they get married, they gotta be with their parents and they can like each other and marry. But once they get 18 years old, then they can have the right to move in together and start a family and things like that. So that's going to happen. But also, I was going to say, but when you're acknowledging that a 16-year-old is hotter, for all the people on the right who talked about pedophile, Biden's a pedophile, look at how he's touching this little girl. Yet you're the same person who agrees with Pearly things, saying 16-year-olds are hotter than 26-year-olds, but you get on Joe Biden because he sniffed a 16-year-old girl's hair. It's like, it's bizarre to me. It doesn't make any sense.
I didn't see anyone agree with it, but honestly, I wasn't on Twitter that much this weekend. I saw people. I just saw people dunking on it, and I was like, I looked at her Twitter, and it wasn't there, so I figured it got deleted. Yeah, what do you think? It's like, comments. Do you think this is like becoming like certain people? This is what I was talking about earlier. They know that like the further they push it, the more controversy they say, the crazier stuff they say, the more engagement they get. Like when Pearly says like, 30-year-olds are ugly, 40-year-olds are ugly. Like she just kept escalating, go further. Where it's like, if I say that 35-year-olds are has-beens, like that's not that weird. But it's like kind of messed up, but like also low key, like a lot of people are going to agree. And then she just like escalates further. Now, like you said, off the tates, I see certain people where it's not like everything they're saying is wrong, but they're addicted to the controversy. They'll say and then you can't be addicted to fame or controversy or backlash. It's not good because you want to believe in what you're saying. And if it's just to get a reaction, you're eventually going to go further to the point where you don't even really believe it, or it's so crazy it's going to get you in trouble. And it's like, that's the one thing that I'm not one to say like, you shouldn't have a platform or you can't say that, or you can't have that debate. I'm just one of those people that's like, me personally, I don't want to get too close to somebody that's addicted to attention and controversy. Because if you notice, dude, who's not fighting right now? Who's not fighting in the manosphere and on the right wing? People are beefing. Fuentes is beefing with like Ethan Ralph right now. That's like a thing going on. This person's beefing with that person. If you notice, like I have my opinions, but even with me and Tim, I don't like Tim Pool that much, but like, it's not a beef. I just don't like him. But if I would have a respectful debate, I can compliment parts of his business that I think he's done good with. You know what I'm saying? It's not like this, like vitriolic, like I'm going to destroy this guy's life. It's like, dude, he gets a lot worse from other people than me, even though I don't like him. People, I don't like this era of like, I want attention at all costs. I want to beef at all costs. I hate that person so much. Dude, I'm a grown man. Like I just want to be left alone. And I don't know. It's not thrilling for me to like have 1,000 people yelling at me on Twitter or arguing with people, or like, I don't find thrill in that, but some people do. And she's definitely one that's like, how far can I go to get clicks? And it's like, exactly. I do feel like it's lost the authenticity that it probably had like a few months ago.
I mean, I do pay attention a lot on Twitter because I'm just constantly on there trying to see what's going on. But with Tate, Tate may have controversial take, but I almost think they're like once in the blue moon. I see a lot of his tweets. His tweets are all about like grown man stuff, where Pearl it's just pushing the needle even more, right? But I will say, just a little side note, there is something to be said about chicks who are older. I'm just being honest with you. The only reason why that men today tend to like MILFs because they watch a bunch of pornography, and that's why they're into that kind of stuff. But in reality, but the realness though is that women do get older. They're a woman's beauty lies in her youth. That's why most men tend to go for younger women, like the 20-year-olds and things like that, because their beauty does lie in their youth. Once they get a little bit older and they have experience, usually that's why the sexual revolution, things like that, the liberation is screw women up because they had lots of sex in their 20s, and now women are choosing careers over motherhood. So they're having a career, they're having sex, they're going to the club. So once they get older, that's when they start dating the nice guys because the guys they really want are the guys who are rich, are the guys who got their own business, are the guys who got multiple girls. They don't want to deal with that. So they settle for less.
Mm.
That's why you hear that the phrase women date up and men would date down. Like a man of my stature right now, I'd probably go for like a woman who's a 7. Whereas Andrew Tate, he goes for a female who's a 10 because he can get that. I can't. But if I got to Andrew Tate's level, now all the chicks that comes to me are the 9s and 10s, while the guys who are not my level are the ones who get the girls on Tinder, the 5, the 6s, the 4s, because hey, it's easy.
Right. When I posted, there was a chick that said, I don't like nice guys or whatever. I like, but like, that means you can't get chicks. I posted it on my Instagram. I said, do you agree or disagree?
Oh, I saw that.
Most people disagree, but here's the thing. A lot of my audience, because of my content's like a little wiser and it's not like childish. I have a lot of moms. I have a lot of like women that are smarter and wiser now. And almost everyone answering that's like, I disagree. It's moms, it's wives. It's not girls in their 20s because like, they've learned those lessons and they've found a good man, etc. I think that's kind of brilliant. What you said was like, girls in their 30s, they like a good man because a lot of the people their age are dating younger, and especially the wealthy ones, that's what they're going for. And for me, I'm 33. It's like, if I want to have 6 kids, can I date a woman that's 36, 37? Or do I want someone in their younger 20s that has 15 years to have kids? It's like,
Yeah,
that's just the reality of like, being a mom at 20 versus being a mom at 35 for the first time. And these are things that people don't talk about. That's why the manosphere is getting so popular, because they come out and just say stuff like that. But then there's always someone who hijacks the combo and just escalates it completely, where it's like, 80-year-olds are hot. And you're like, it says like something crazy, saying to like pop off.
It gets weird.
I see that for sure, where it's like, it's definitely, if you want a large family, you got to start younger.
Well, I'm going to tell you too, and also too, what most women don't think about, and this is just a fact. When women who tend to get older, it's not that you can't have a kid or kids, but you get to a point of geriatric pregnancies when you're in your 30s. That does happen. So your eggs won't be the same as they were when you're younger. It's the reason why men, not all, but there are men out there who tend to go for younger chicks because they want to have fertility. They want to have more kids with this woman and things like that. Are there some girls, even when they're young, that can't have kids? Sure, but it's a small minority, right? Majority of women in their youth are able to have kids throughout their 20s. Whereas if you're like 35 and older, it's going to be a lot harder for you to have a kid. You tend to have problems. It's the reason why you get ectopic pregnancies and things like that. And in some cases, they just have an abortion, which is unfortunate, but it does happen. Or the mother's life can be at risk because she's older. So if a man goes for a younger chick, I will say Morgan, if you know who Morgan is, Morgan Ariel, she posted some data that basically said that people who date within their age range tend to have more success. And I'm not saying that's not true. You can find somebody your age, but you got to think about longevity. And I think that we don't talk about that. That's why in the Age of Men podcast, we try to have those nuanced conversations about men dating younger chicks and why they do it. It's not, some men just do it because they can, because, hey, I'm rich like this, I can get younger chicks, whatever. But you got to think long term. If you want a woman, or if you go down the polygamy route, you want multiple wives, you're going to get younger chicks because you want to be able to give those women your seed. So that's why men can date multiple women, because they can impregnate multiple of them. Look at Nick Cannon right now. He's impregnating like half the world, it seems like. And yeah, because he can do that. That's why they always say, if you put a man on an island with 100 women and a woman on an island with 100 men, that woman can only get pregnant once a year, whereas the man on the island can impregnate all 100 women. Do you understand?
Yeah, you were talking about getting like a 7 or a 10. The thing with 10s though, like in their 20s or even in their 30s, is like they have more options. So it's like, it's always a harder thing anyway. Cause like say a chick is a 10 and she could get Andrew Tate and others, like does she want to hang out with them? Sure. But like, does she have access to other people, billionaires? Like if you're hot enough, you could pretty much probably get access to anybody if you want. So they're living in this crazy world because they're not living in a traditional world. Like this is the freedom of America where women can do whatever. So the hotter chicks are, unless they're like raised really well and like really conservative and Christian, they're more trouble. They're harder to keep. You know what I'm saying? It
Yeah.
comes at a cost. Say you have like Tom Brady and his wife. They're both successful and good looking. So like it's harder to make it work because you have a superstar here traveling around the world, could get any chick. And then you got this beautiful model who could get any guy. It's one of those things where like it's a more difficult relationship than if you just married a hot librarian who was just happy to be with Tom Brady. That's just the reality how I think of it too. It's like I personally wouldn't want a woman in the spotlight. Like if it happens naturally, it happens, but that's not actually appealing to me because having two people with traveling spotlight, to me, that sounds like trouble. And I was going to ask you too, is like, do you think this like thing is a pendulum swinging back, and sometimes it swings too far, but like where they're telling women that it's amazing to be single at like 45 or whatever and be Chelsea Handler. Like it's so cool. It's so awesome. So now people are swinging the other way and they're like, that's actually not natural. What's natural is having them in your 20s. And then like, there's certain provocateurs they realize where they're like, the more I go, the further the left goes in the other direction, people start pushing back, acting like, well, no, that's not, like that's causing population problems in Japan. Like people aren't having kids and they're losing people because like the kids that are 18 to like 30, like they're not having kids, now they're literally their country's going to like collapse because of it.
Yeah, I've seen comparisons to that too, where they're saying that people like Chelsea Handler is kind of pushing this propaganda to have chicks be okay with being single, and it kind of does have the China propaganda that having less kids, because before China was only one kid, but now they're okay with two kids. So, and people like Chelsea Handler push this idea that hey, I'm okay when she's not. Her actions speak louder. She's drinking wine in the afternoon. She's having sex with whoever. This is what I'm talking about. Like she's promoting this idea of being, promiscuous at 50 years old and things like that. And supposedly, according to her, she said that there's a study that said that chicks her age are actually a lot more happier, but her action doesn't show it. Again, you're drinking in the afternoon. You got to prove to the internet that you're happy when in reality you're not. Most people know that having a family, especially at a young age, is a lot better because I would argue statistically, I've seen this before. I saw Lauren Chin talk about this. Statistically, those who get married at a younger age, they are a lot more happier because it's mom, especially if you do it traditionally, mom, dad, God, Christ, man, woman, children. You do that structure in the home. You got kids, you got productive members of society because you gave your value to those kids. The women like Chelsea Handler, those are the ones who end up having cats at the end of the day. And it's not a healthy lifestyle because all you're doing is the same. It becomes repetition. Wake up and drink. Go to the club, sleep with guys. The same thing the guys do in the red pill space. Get rich, sleep with girls, go on the boat, wake up tomorrow, the exact same thing. So both sides are really losing. This is the reason why I say people need to start vetting people and start waiting until they get married to actually have a successful relationship. I was going to bring this up real quick. Planned Parenthood had this tweet where they said virginity is a social construct. Maybe you see that. Sorry, it's a little bright. There you go.
Okay.
But yeah, so they had that, and the reason why I bring this up because they're promoting the idea of promiscuity. So imagine people like Chelsea Handler pushing the exact same thing, where now virginity is no longer considered sacred. It's women who are just out there just doing what they want, and those type of women, in my opinion, they're not happy women. To have to go on social media and convince the world that you're happy because you're single at 50, you're really not. You just sound like you're bitter. My friend always says that it goes from hot girl summer to bitter bitch winter. So you know what I mean?
Dude, that's dark. That's dark that Planned Parenthood saying virginity is a social construct because like I'm not for abortion at this point in my life. But it's like if you were somewhat reasonable about it, where you're like, yo, it's a last ditch effort, but it's not like desirable. But they're trying to make like it's desirable. They're like, go ahead, go get pregnant, just come get it aborted. Like, it's gross that they're pushing that. I wanted to ask one more question before we leave, and then let people know where they can find you too. But my last question was this: on Twitter, obviously, I think like a successful, nice family is better than not having one. But what do you think about a lot of fathers who are like stuck in bad relationships, or a lot of husbands where they want a divorce, they're going to get a divorce? And I'm seeing a lot of this stuff on Reddit where, there's just like a lot of men are flocking to Reddit when they have, I'm going to try to read the tweet real quick that I read, but they're flocking to Reddit to really, I guess I didn't like it, so I don't have it saved. They're basically like, hey, my woman, like, I had to work late at night to make money for her. and like I couldn't text her because I was at a board meeting, and like, you know, she's making me sleep on the couch, and he's like, we're drifting apart. And it seems like as much as there's so much success in the like trad wife, like, oh, have a wife, have 10 kids, and, you know, get a farm, that's the community, but it's not translating to a lot of people's reality, where they're stuck in these relationships where they don't want a divorce, but the love is gone, the woman isn't interested, and like the men don't know what to do. Like, do you think that's happening more and more? And like, what do you think about that?
I think people who don't communicate in their relationships, it does tend to fall apart. But as you know, anomaly, 80% of, or up to 70 to 80% of divorces are initiated by women. And a lot of those is because of financial problems, communication problems, infidelity, things like that. The men who are having these issues, I would argue this is where I hold men accountable. And most men may not agree with me, but it's their fault because they don't know how to maintain attraction. This is the reason why it's important to always be in your frame when you meet a woman. So what I mean by being in your frame is this. If she met you and you were confident, stoic, and chill and had good vibes, but then you got comfortable, you became goofy, silly, saying I love you too soon, she's going to lose attraction to you. And women have a hypergamous nature. They like you when they met you, they met this guy that they were attracted to, but then you got comfortable. And now that you got comfortable, you're not working as much, you're making her, you know, you put all your time into her, not your time into your purpose, because she sees longevity. She wants a man who's going to be able to take care of her family, her children, should she bear them with you. And so when she starts to lose that interest or they're falling in love, it's because the man is not, he became beta in the relationship. He's not being his alpha male self. I know people don't like the term alpha and beta, but what I'm saying is that he's not being a leader. He became weak. The moment you become weak, that's when she starts to look to the grass that's greener. Because again, women have a hypergamous nature, which is why they date up, not down. They only date down once they get older. Not all, but they'll date down once they get older because they realize I've been through this, I've been through that, been the one to deal with my extra baggage. So I gotta, find the guy that's gonna be on my level versus the guy that I really want. You know what I mean? So when you are
Do you think when women settle like that, where they're like, okay, I was going out of my league in my 20s doing whatever, but I couldn't secure it, and they go for like someone nicer and more secure in their 30s, do you think they do love him and like him and will be good wives, or do you think they're always going to like remember the times where they could get better?
See that's where it's a case by case basis because it depends on the guy. If the guy is not standing on his principles, if he's a yes man, she's gonna look for a guy that can do the opposite. Not like say no, but if he's not able to lead her, because again, I always say that women want people in men. Protection, provision, and leadership. If he's not providing that, then yeah, she is going to look for it somewhere else or fall out of love because there is no connection. See, men learn how to get women by just approaching, but they don't know how to actually communicate and keep the connection. Do you get what I'm saying? Because
Right.
they're so focused on trying to get in her pants that they're not actually trying to be the man that they should be to lead. You gotta think, you want her to bury your children. Well, how are you gonna lead the family? If you cannot lead a family, if you can't even lead yourself, then you can't lead a family. I want to point this out real quick. I saw this video by this guy called The Desirable Truth on Instagram. He had this video where he basically asked this chick about her meeting guys and how it was, and he calls these guys over and he said, if she tells you right now to come over and get some, would you do it? He's like looking at her. He's like, yep. He's on 360 for me. She turns around and then he asks her the same question. She tells him 360. He does like the 360. She goes, no. Just rejected him. And I'm like, that's what I'm talking about. This guy fell for the woman so easily because she has things that he wants. And because he fell for it so easily, she had the power to make him do what he wants and then reject him. Do you get what I'm saying? Imagine if he humbly rejected her and was like, nah, you know what? I wouldn't go over to her house if she called me to because that's not a woman that I want to be with. Now I can make it be like, well, dang, how come he's not attracted to me like that?
I have a question because, like, for me at this point in my life, I've worked hard. I'm doing well. My life is good. I don't, and maybe this is wrong, or I want to at least get your perspective. I want a chick to be like obsessed with me. Where like, if a chick isn't that into me, it's like I'm not. Obviously, you have to work for someone you love, but the thing is, I'm thinking long term. So it's one of those things that if it's not like real and they don't really like me, I'm sure I could find someone who likes me more. So it's one of those things where I know a man is supposed to try and, make effort. Obviously, you're not supposed to just be like, let a woman come for you. But I'm just at the point now where it's like I've waited a long time, and if it's not like totally right or it doesn't feel right, I'm not doing that much chasing. I'm like, you should like me more. If not, it's fine. I'll go find someone else.
No, you actually nailed it, and this is where I agree with some of the red pill. If the woman likes you more than you like her, it does tend to it ends up being a lot more, the ball's in a lot more in your court, because if you like her more than she likes you, she might lose the attraction because you're putting her up here. I always quote JLP where it's like the moment she's up here, she is your god. And when she's your god, you are her peasant. You get what I'm saying? So she has to like you more than you like her because for example, with your status, right? You're somebody who has a big following. I'm sure you're doing well financially. You're very stoic about what you talk about. You're very passionate, and a woman can see that. So when she sees that, she's like, okay, this guy has his life in order. I would like to have something long term, right? When you lead and you say, listen, I want to get to know you, but I'm not wanting to have sex with you because I want to do it the right way. That is you standing on your ground. That's you being a man. And you're actually showing what you're worth. If you have sex with her, you're basically saying that I'm that weak that you can get me in bed with you. Versus be like, you know what, I'm good.
My last thing, since we're talking about it, like I was seeing somebody, it wasn't like fully official, but I was seeing them for a year on and off. It was like long distance, so it wasn't really great. And I kind of had figured like I liked them. They were super pretty. But it was like I didn't think it was gonna work, but it was like good enough to try. But I kind of knew in my gut that it wasn't long term. And it was one of those things that I wasn't like that great because I thought it wasn't gonna work and it was working well. And after a year and a half, like I'm not trying to play games with someone, like waste their time. So it's like I started taking it a little more serious because I felt like I was messing up. And then it kind of like fell apart where it's like it was me taking it more serious that actually bothered him. And it's funny because women in the comments, not all of them, but some will be like, that's not true. We want a guy to do this and that. And it's like, it doesn't, that's not always how it translates in reality. But luckily for me, I wasn't like, I knew it probably wasn't right anyway. So it wasn't like, but it got to the point where I'm like, either this needs to get more serious or it needs to go away. Cause I'm not trying to like waste years of my life. And the second I did that, I feel like what you were saying happened where it just like fell apart, where it's like, they almost, as much as they say, oh, we want this guy to do this and that, it's almost like they don't want that. And the second you do it falls apart.
So this is where I'll quote. Most people may not like this guy, but I'll quote Myron Gaines on this from Fresh and Fit. I do like a lot of his content. Women say what he's on a podcast, Fresh and Fit. It's pretty cool. So I don't agree with everything he said, but he has some good takes. He says women say one thing, but they do the exact opposite. And it's how it is. They'll say, I want a guy who's like this, that, and the third. And I'm not trying to sound repetitive in the red pill, but they'll say that. I've been with chicks who say, I want a guy who da, 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 da. And then you become that guy and they end up losing interest because they don't really want that guy. It's like they want a challenge. They want a guy that's going to not be this yes man. Let me give you an example real quick. So I was with some friends. This is when I was like in my little my alpha male strategies. I was pulling chicks left and right. It was bizarre. And so went to this social club. My friend sees this waitress. She's pretty hot too. And he's like, I'm gonna get her number. I said, bro, hold on. You need to give her your number and you not get hers. Or I'm sorry, let her get your, I forget how I worded it, but basically I was like, don't allow her to like push you over essentially, right? So she comes over and he's like, oh, so can I get your number? And he goes, I'm sorry, she goes, how about I get your number? That's what I'm telling him, to have her get your number versus the other way around. She goes, how about I get your number? He goes, okay. And he just writes it down hella fast. And I'm looking at him and I look at her. She looks at her friend and she goes, no, I was like, bro, she pretty much just demanded to get your number without having her give you hers. And you just jumped to it. She said jump and you said how high. Me watching that, I was like, I bet you she's one of those chicks that probably say, I want a guy this, that, and the third. My friend was being nice, but yeah, because he was being nice, she took control. And I'm like,
and maybe it's one of those things too, where she didn't like him. So if she got his number, she could just throw it away or something. So like he doesn't text her all the time, because sometimes she's not interested. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. I told him this too. I was like, bro, make sure that you get her number and not the other way around. Oh, I don't care, bro. I don't care. I was like, bro, I'm telling you, you want to get this chick? Listen to me. I'm telling you the truth here. Didn't happen like that. And that face she made was like, see, I got him to do what I want. And I was like, Shaking my hair, bro. Like, but this is what I'm talking about. When you make a woman your god, I'm telling you, she sees you as a peasant. That's not me trying to be a red pill rhetoric. I'm just telling the truth. Again, I'm gonna be honest with you. I dated a lot of women. I saw what it was like to be a nice guy, and I know what it's like to be an alpha male. I did both of them. When I was on my purpose, I saw girls come to me. When I was putting my time into them, I saw girls not be into me.
Right.
So when you really are taking care of your stuff, when you're financially stable, when you're stoic, you're in shape, you know what you want, you
Right.
control the relationship. That's why they say men control the relationship, because once you have your life in control, that control is also the relationship as well. That's why women have access to sex, men have access to relationship, because no man cannot get into a woman unless she opens the door. So
Right.
until that happens, but that's why I argue people should wait until marriage. You need to vet the people that you're with. Otherwise, you're just going to keep falling in love, having sex, and then it goes downhill. Every time people have sex before marriage, it goes downhill because she gave it up, you gave it up, and the fact that she gave it up that easily just makes you wonder in the back of your head what other guys she's talking to.
Yeah, I'm not doing it. So it's a superpower to like not even just pretend like you don't care, but to actually not care, because it's one of those things where like I'm happy, I'm settled, and I've waited this long that I'm not settling and I'm not caving on my values. So if chicks don't like it, I don't care if they're a 10. It's like I think you notice, at least at my point too, when you have more issues, like when I was in my 20s and I wasn't like the as confident, etc., but I could still pull, you're way more like you have way less standards as far as like personality, etc. Where I feel like now, even if she's really hot, if it seems like too much trouble, I'm just not interested, because it's like
Yeah.
I don't even want to do it. And it's nice to not care, because when you care too much, like you said, I mean, this is why I'm able to do videos so much. I work so hard because I'm not like running around like, if you know, like some guys they don't even like have a job or a career because they're just chasing chicks all the time. So
Yeah.
it's a fine
You
balance.
actually inspired me. You actually inspired me to stay on my purpose, because I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And I always saw you being consistent with your news analysis. I know I always post the news on Instagram, and I'm like, I always post the news on Instagram, but I should be talking about this stuff like on the live
Right.
stream. So you inspired me to actually get more on my purpose, which is why I've been more consistent these past 3 or 4 months now. About 4 months now, just posting daily live streams all the time, because it's like, and especially now I have a daughter. I don't want her to see me just sleeping around with multiple women and then she ends up dating guys who are just like me. I
Right.
want to be an example for her to see that her dad is a guy that's going to be working and waiting until he gets married, so she gets older. So when she
Right.
dates a guy, she's not dating a guy who's running out here just chasing chicks. She's dating a guy that actually respects her and wants to wait until marriage.
I got to piss really bad before we go, and I put on that. Thanks for listening to Dreamer Podcast. Where can they find you, Julius? And you know, the reason I had you on is because I think you got a great work ethic. You've been doing good stuff, and I wanted to hear your takes, man. You did not disappoint. So thanks.
I appreciate that. You guys can find me on my YouTube channel, Today with Julius. Follow me on all platforms, Today with Julius, TODAYWITHJULIUS. You can also find my other podcast every Sunday with my friend C3 Nick, Age of Men podcast, every Sunday, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Anomaly, I appreciate you having me on. You got to come on the Age of Men podcast. Love to get your takes on the things we talk about. It's a lot of great conversations that we have.
Easy. Let's do it. Dreamer Podcast, folks. I'm a piss. I drank a lot of liquids during this live stream. Have a good one.
All right.
Hey, what's going on, my friends? Just a few ways to stay in touch and support if you'd like to. The first way is dreamrare.com. We have blue beanies, black beanies, pink hats, other colored hats, freedom versus tyranny shirts, stay blessed long sleeve, God is great long sleeve, and lots of more cool items coming soon. Dreamrare.com. Check out the shop to support. Everything's made in the United States. Handpicked by me. Patreon.com/raretalk for $5 a month. You can help support me, support the show. If you haven't noticed, unlike other channels, I don't work with very many sponsors, sometimes none at all. And part of the way I'm able to do that is with the dreamrare.com shop and patreon.com/raretalk. So thank you guys for keeping this show free, unimpeded, uninterrupted. I'm forever grateful. My free email list is stayintouchwithme.com. So check the links below in the description or just type in on any browser, stayintouchwithme.com, all one word. You'll find my email list, put it in there, and it's the least annoying email list you'll ever be on. I barely use it because I don't like getting emailed every day or every week. It's annoying. so I don't do it. StayInTouchWithMe.com. It helps me take back some power away from big tech. Telegram, t.me/DreamRareChat or @DreamRareChat. Due to censorship, I post all my live stream and videos there. Sometimes I have some bonus content, and I try to give people a heads up when Facebook or YouTube won't. DreamRareChat at Telegram. My Instagram is @DreamRare. Thanks for everybody following there for shorter content. And DreamRareLinks.com, that's DreamRareLinks.com, has all my stuff. My podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, my music on Spotify and Apple, my Rumble page, my BitChute and Gab page. All my links are found at DreamRareLinks.com. Thanks for watching, folks. God bless you. You already know I'll be back with more content soon. Appreciate you.